We go back to last summer. A lesser person, a casual, would say the offseason. And I asked you for your predictions, and you gave them. And let's take a look at where some of you landed on these, shall we? Let's start in Coral Gables. Joe said Miami's going to win the Coastal. Joe, no, they did not. They did not at all. Unfortunately, Joe, I think that I may have agreed with you because I put a 5 on this. And as our friends over on the FSU board have famously pointed out, I predicted Miami to go 10-2. So yeah, I thought they were going to win the Coastal. Sue me. Don't. That's the opposite of what this show's about. But I did think they were going to have a lot better season than 5-7. I asked Jesse today. Actually, I didn't have to ask him. He just told me. He said, guess how many teams hit their over on the win total in the entire Coastal Division. And I got Duke, but I did not remember Georgia Tech. I didn't remember, well, North Carolina made the conference title game, but North Carolina didn't even have an overly special year. So it just was not a noteworthy year in the Coastal. Bad misread of the situation. Sorry. So that one did not hit. Next up, this one did not hit. Will Anderson, going to win the Heisman Trophy, says Felix. Will Anderson did not win the Heisman Trophy. Now, at the time, I remember saying this. I said, I've got to put a big boldness rating on this because I don't run the Heisman. Like, I thought to myself, if I were able to dictate the Heisman finalists instead of the voting class voting on them, then Will Anderson would have a really good shot at this. But Will Anderson was not going to have a good shot because he got screwed out of being a finalist the year before, and I saw no reason that was going to change. Well, then also you add into that the fact that Will Anderson's numbers just weren't as good and not nearly as good in 2022 as they were in 2021. About half the total tackles, half the total solo tackles, way less, like 14 fewer tackles for loss and 10 or 7.5 fewer sacks. Math on the fly. Harris County High School stand up. So, yeah, that wasn't close. And even so, even if he were to deliver on the same numbers he had the year before, it was going to be tough. You're talking about winning it, not being a finalist, winning it. So, yeah, that was pretty bold. The next one was one of the highest boldness ratings I gave anything all year. Weston Wagoner hit us up and said, Kentucky will upset Georgia at home. No. They will go 11-1 regular season. No. And they will make it to Atlanta. No. They were competitive against Georgia. They lost 16-6. So I guess hats off for that. They were 7-6 this year. So they not only didn't win 11 games, they didn't even hit their over-under win total, which was 8.5. And they didn't go to Atlanta. In fact, they lost to Vanderbilt this last year. They were 7-6. It was not a great year for Kentucky. So that one was dead in the water. Next up. This one was lofty, but it wasn't the boldest thing in the world. Ohio State, going to go undefeated, 15-0, national champions. I don't need to remind you, but I will anyway, in the interest of just being a good sport. They lost to Michigan. Then they got a reprieve, and they go to Atlanta, only to lose to Georgia in the Peach Bowl, in a game that even the head coach at Georgia said Ohio State should have won, for whatever that's worth. I don't think they give you anything for that. But so that was what it was. Like, the prediction fails. I put a 7 on that. It's hard to go undefeated. Even if you do win the title, it's hard to go undefeated. So, yeah, the prediction didn't hit. Here's what's interesting now. As we build towards spring and we end up eventually building towards this coming fall in the next season, people are starting to talk. And I've got my ear to the ground for you. And let me tell you what they're saying. They're saying there's a gap in the Big Ten, like they always have. But the gap now, it's Michigan, and then a gap, and then Ohio State. What do you think about that? We have to talk amongst ourselves here. What do you think about that? Gap. A gap. I know there's a 2-game win streak. I've been on the field for both of them. And I know they got to go to Ann Arbor, Michigan again this fall, if memory serves. So I know Jim Harbaugh's got a really good team coming back. Jim Harbaugh himself is coming back. We got a quarterback competition to worry about at Ohio State. I know all that. Gap is a strong word for a situation that really requires changes in the form of inches instead of wholesale changes. And that's going to be a theme I talk about with Ohio State a lot. I don't think there's a gap. I don't think that. I think those are two really strong football programs. And the last 2 times they've been on the field, it's gone Michigan's way. I don't think there's this giant gap. I don't see it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Last up, boy, this one was also dead on arrival. West Virginia, says John, will make the Big 12 championship game. It was a brutal season. The Mountaineers went 5-7. They missed a bowl game. And here's what's interesting. Like, imagine me coming to you, John, in the preseason, after you made that prediction to me, and I said, well, I got good news for you. You think they're going to the Big 12 championship game. What if I also guarantee you they're going to beat Oklahoma, they're going to beat Oklahoma State, and they're going to beat Baylor? You would have said, can I go ahead and buy my ticket? And I would have said no, because they're going to lose to Kansas, Texas Tech, Iowa State, and Kansas State. I also lost to Pitt, if you care about such things. And it was just a very, very bad year. Very bad year. To the point where some people are frankly surprised there wasn't a change in the head coaching position there. They did overhaul the ADs, so we'll see what happens in the future. Neil Brown, people keep asking me to do a hot seat segment, and I'm not doing one because I don't think there are a ton of them out there right now. But if you were to circle one, I don't think it's controversial at this point to say it would probably be Neil Brown at West Virginia.
Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.